There we go. Can you hear me all right? All right, great. So thanks so much for coming to my session this afternoon. It's a little bit about managing a large shared digital collection across multiple districts. What I hope to do in just a short amount of time here in 20 minutes, let's see if my clicker is working, give you a little bit of a background as to how we manage this across districts. I work here in Pennsylvania at what's called an intermediate unit. So in order for me to kind of give you some background as to how we manage it, I kind of have to give you a little bit of background if you're not from Pennsylvania as to kind of where the funding comes from and how the organization works and is broken down. I'll explain to you what we mean by our IMS, and then we'll kind of talk about how me and my other librarians within our districts kind of work together to manage that collection. And from that, I'll kind of show you how we feel our usage is trending upwards. And we have more and more folks accessing our ebook collections because of the ability to have that shared collection across the district. My name's Tim Leister. So I work at Intermediate Unit IU13 here in Pennsylvania. I facilitate what's called the Instructional Media Services Division within IU13. So again, to understand kind of what that means within IU13, the state of Pennsylvania is broken up into 29 different intermediate units that serves all of the students within Pennsylvania with the public school districts within there. So you're right here in Philadelphia. If you go an hour west, you'll find the area that I serve, which is Intermediate Unit 13, which encompasses Lancaster and Lebanon counties there. So all the IUs within the state of Pennsylvania are kind of the go-between between the Pennsylvania Department of Education and our local school districts. So we provide services on a larger scale or broader scale that can meet the needs of all the different districts in there. So it's kind of important to understand these are our 22 public school districts within those two counties. So our shared collection is accessible by all of the students within those 22 school districts. So of course, there's a lot that goes into that because there's a lot, even within just a small area, there's a lot of different diversity. There's lots of different needs. There's lots of opinions and what should and should not be in our shared collection. So we have to kind of come to an agreement and understand, you know, what is the shared collection and also how are we funding the books and the titles that are in that shared collection. And that's what comes from the IMS at IU13 within our 22 school districts. Every 5 years, we get together and determine how the collection of IMS funds that comes from PDE gets utilized within our districts. So we have a committee of superintendents, assistant superintendents, and so forth to say, we're going to pool our resources that comes from the state and combine that to provide services to all of the 22 school districts rather than school districts individually using that money because we feel the purchasing power can go a longer way with that. So the IMS is part of that. And again, we're kind of coming up on our next 5 years, but it's a committee of people that get together and determine what that service is going to be. So Overdrive is just one part of that. Part of that funding in that 5-year process is, say, we allocate X number of dollars, and each year we're going to use that X number of dollars, and we're going to purchase, add titles to, add magazines to our shared collection that's going to be part of our Sora database. So these are just some of the other programs that we provide as part of the IMS. Just want to mention to you that it's not just Sora, it's more than that, but Sora is just one of those different programs. The IMS is more than just these digital programs. We also provide actual hands-on materials too. We provide like mobile planetariums, AR, VR kits, telepresence devices, and some STEM lending libraries. So I just mentioned that to you. So you know it's a large collection of funds that we utilize for different services, and Sora and Overdrive is just one piece of that. So how do we manage this collection? So I am not a librarian. I'm an instructional technology specialist. So knowing the titles that are best serving our individual districts, I rely heavily on the librarians in our school districts to make those choices. I'm kind of just the manager of the group. I get together, coordinate some of their meetings. We are very blessed at IU13 that we have quarterly meetings with all of our librarians to come spend a day at IU13, talk through a lot of the issues. Certainly within the last 2 years, librarians have been going through lots of issues that they haven't had to deal with for many, many years, and getting them together in a time and space to share those ideas is really important. So part of that is what we create, and we ask a member of each of the districts if they would be on our Overdrive committee. So it's a voluntary basis. We try to have at least one representative from all 22 school districts. We try to make sure we have librarians from elementary, middle, and high school grade levels as well, to make sure we're representing everybody in the K-12 space. So from that committee, really the goal is to get together. They meet at least twice a year, if not more. We just had our meeting this past May. And at that meeting, the committee gets together, discusses the titles, looks at usage data, talks about what's popular within their districts, and they use the funding that we give to them, and they create a master list of titles based upon that. The number of books for each title, the types of titles that are going to be in there, and they get together in May, create a large master list that they then send out to all of the librarians for them to review. So the committee is made up of maybe 20 or 30 librarians. We have 2 lead persons that kind of take the role in that. And after that meeting, they send it out to all of our district librarians. It's very kind of public process. They say, here's our master list, this 1,000 number of collections we would like to make available to our schools for the following school year. And the goal is really for each of the districts to be represented in some way, in some form. So the way we have to manage that is because we want to make sure within our shared collection in our Advantage account that we also have to make sure we have accounts available. All of our individual librarians have their own district Advantage accounts that they curate for themselves individually, because they have their own needs. They want to use some of their own funding to purchase titles. But then we also have an IU13 shared collection account where they will also then have accessibility to carts, so they can manage the carts. They can manage the titles within there. So when the committee gets together, they're using their IU13 Advantage account to manage all those different carts and to place titles into that. That's separate from their individual district librarian account, where they use for just titles that are available for their district. So again, we're looking at a shared collection where they have all of the 22 school districts are going to have access to these titles. And again, the main benefit here is if a student at one small school wants to have that book, they can then go to that shared collection, reserve that book, and have access to that title, where that small little school might not be able to afford all those different titles. So the idea is to make more books available to students on a larger scale, but still giving them the ability to control their own books within their district as well. So there's that master list that kind of goes out to that shared collection. As I mentioned, the review is then available to all of the librarians in there. If they say, you know what, I don't know if this title is really meeting our needs, or perhaps this title is designated at the adult level, I feel it should be moved down to the juvenile level, or vice versa. The librarians have say in that, and the committee takes that and usually goes along with those suggestions. So it is difficult with 22 different districts of different mentalities, different needs, even philosophies among those 22 districts, and the librarians who work there. They work together very collaboratively, and they are understanding if somebody has an issue with a book that's in the master collection, it's going to be removed because one of the districts doesn't approve of that. So again, we make that very open. In the past, it really wasn't scrutinized very closely. In the current political environment that we live in, that list is probably being reviewed a little bit more so the last 2 years than it ever has been in the past. But we try to keep it at open lines of communication, make sure that everybody has the opportunity to review it. We communicate back and forth if any changes are made. So before that master list is finalized, we try to give at least a 2-week time period for that review to take place. Yeah, so the question was if it's been taken out of the shared collection, if the individual school district could still purchase it. And that's why we have the individual district accounts for them. So if the shared collection, or maybe they want more titles because it's a part of a curriculum piece or something, and maybe there's only 10 copies in our shared collection, that individual district can purchase an additional number of copies for just their school district that's not part of the shared collection. Yeah, so they still have that local control to that. So then my role is really, I get the kind of okay from the committee leads sometime around August to say, you know what, I've looked through all the deals. I think we've gotten all the prices exactly where we want them. And then my role is really to hit the purchase button. So I put the funds in there, and then I approve the cart purchases for the different amounts. And that usually happens in August. That's our largest purchase. And then the committee meets again sometime around January to say, you know, where's our title usage? Do we need to add some new books here? Do we need to take some away? And they leave some of that remaining funding to kind of make the purchases in January for the second half of the year. But our largest purchase happens sometime in August. So I wouldn't be remiss here in Pennsylvania to talk about some of the unfortunate issues that we've having to deal with, because again, the shared collection has been part of IU13 for the last 7 or 8 years. And it wasn't very closely scrutinized by anyone until, you know, the current environment that we live in, that the titles that are physically in libraries are starting to be scrutinized. And a lot of people didn't even realize that IU13 had a shared collection of books that were available to all students within those districts. So when you're trying to serve all these different needs, if there is a situation at an individual school district that disagrees with one of the books that are in the collection, we never really had a process in place as to how to handle that. So in this, you can go to the next slide. What we had to create was actually a procedure for how to handle that. If at school district A, there's a book challenge that's taking place, previously, you were not able to essentially turn off access to that book. It's either kind of all or none. Now, what we're learning is there's going to be a new system in place that's going to allow for more local control, but we had to get all 22 superintendents to agree on a process as when a book challenge takes place and it's in our shared collection, what do? So we kind of had to create a policy for that to happen, because some districts say when a challenge takes place, the book automatically comes off the shelf during the process. Other districts say, no, that book stays on the shelf until that process completes. So we had to get all of the districts to kind of agree to that process with the understanding to meet all of the needs. We were going to keep that book in the collection. That was the agreement we had until the individual local school district challenge process played out. We are happy to report that none of the challenges that have been taking place have been upheld. So any book that's in our shared collection right now has never had to be removed. There was only kind of a case where we had some books that were kind of setting them on edge that we wanted to pull just to kind of calm the nerves of everybody that's in there. But overall, there haven't been any upheld book challenges that have affected ours. So what has to happen, though, is there's a lot of communication with local school challenges taking place. We had to create a process where we have to kind of be informed, and we wanted all of our librarians to be informed. So if there is a book challenge that happens at a local school district, we ask that they inform us at IU13. We then communicate it out to our librarians. And if a book challenge is upheld, we use in Overdrive what's called the content reserve section. So what that allows us to do is say, for this title, it's essentially going to be behind a passcode for all of the individual districts. So this is the process we had in place that we really haven't had to use. However, if a title is challenged and it's upheld and it's in our shared collection, we then give that passcode in that content reserve bundle to each of the individual school district librarians. And if a student wants to sign that book out or reserve that book, they are then given the passcode and they can individually sign it out. Whereas other districts, especially in the one that's challenged, doesn't want to make it to any of their students, it then goes down to the local level to kind of make that determination. So what we're learning, though, is Overdrive has released a new feature that's going to allow for more local control. So our shared collection is going to have some features where individual districts can make the choice if they want that title to be available to their students as well. We also have all of our districts who've made the connection with their local libraries as well, their local public libraries. So not only do students see the titles for their local school district collection, our IU13 shared collection, but they also have access to their public school or public libraries collection as well. So when a student searches a book, there's a lot of options for them to have access to. So just to give you a little idea of how kind of our usage has trended along, this is just pulling data from this last school year. So we're happy that over 10,000 students logged in at some point with over 100,000 checkouts of ebooks and audiobooks within our collection. Of those checkouts, we also had a lot of holds taking place, which kind of shows there's some demand there for students to want to go in there. So you can see our kind of just some graphics here showing kind of the total number of books. Again, this is across all 22 school districts that we've had over 127,000 checkouts. And again, we feel because of the shared collection and giving students more options to books that they wouldn't have at the local level, this has kind of boosted the amount of access and the amount of reading that we feel takes place. And if you look at it, this is just kind of the past 5 years or so. You can see that huge bump that happened in the 2020 school district. We really saw our usage shoot up during COVID and remote learning. So the ability for students to still have access to electronic books when remote learning was happening, school libraries were shut down because students couldn't be together in the same location. You could see our usage levels doubled and really showed the power of a shared collection and the ebook library that we then would have available to our students. And again, we're coming up on a review cycle, so that the dollar amounts is going to be determined by how much is the bank for going forward for the next 5 years. So when our IMS review committee gets together, we'll determine out of all of that state funding how many dollars we want to use in order to kind of continue along with that shared collection. We're hoping this usage data will show to our curriculum folks and our superintendents that it's being utilized, and we want to continue that shared resource and that shared collection. So that was really quick. If anybody has any questions,